Even that change that I experienced in 1983 pales in comparison to what I see when I go to China today. Every time I go to China, it is, in a sense, it has remade itself in some way. It is only in 1974 that I crossed into China for my first posting. And there is a place called Luowu, which is now really part and parcel of Shenzhen, the new development area. And it used to be a wooden bridge, which used to sort of straddle a small river. And you went across the bridge from Hong Kong to what was then China. And it was literally like leaving a completely different world behind you and entering something very mysterious, something very forbidding. We had to push our luggage cart with our baggage across this bridge. And on the other side, you had, your customs and immigration. And my first experience of what it meant to be in that China was when I went to the dining room to have lunch, and a table was allotted to me. And I just happened to notice that there was another Canadian diplomat who was also sitting there to have lunch. He was traveling to Beijing just like I was. So we greeted each other, and I invited him to join me at my table. Immediately, one of the waitresses came and said, "No, you have to sit at your table, he will sit at his table." There was no question of our being able to actually sit down together and have lunch together. And it was quite an unsettling experience. That was a China which was, unlike today, entirely closed to the rest of the world. It was a closed society. Arriving in Beijing, perhaps at that time there were literally in China, I would say, and certainly in Beijing, not more than 2,000 or 2,500 foreigners. That was the total, foreign population in a sense in Beijing. We were entirely enclosed within our own diplomatic community. There was very little contact with ordinary Chinese. Our sole contact, in fact, were with officers from the foreign ministry, and that is about it. So that was a very different China. And then I returned 6 years later, when the reform movement had already started. This was in 1983, and it was a China that was entirely unrecognizable for somebody like me. I mean, what China had left behind and what it was in 1983. Even that change that I experienced in 1983 pales in comparison to what I see when I go to China today. Every time I go to China, it is, in a sense, it has remade itself in some way. So I have tried to demonstrate in the book that while as Asian civilizations there are certain values, certain ways of looking at the world which we share with China. These are two very different cultures. Their historical trajectories have been very different. So China, in a sense, has been, as you yourself pointed out before, a country where centralized authority has been associated with peace and prosperity. So it is not just Leninist state that you see today, but this is in a certain sense aligned with the general trend of Chinese history. It is in periods where there has been a very weak center, weak leadership, that there has been a fragmentation, there has been economic distress. So when China is looking at its future, the fact that there is a certain ingrained authoritarianism, this is quite in keeping with China's history and culture, in a sense. That is not the case with India. The whole of Indian history is openness to many different, it may be because of invasion, it may be because of migration, it may be because of trade, but India has been a remarkably open culture and civilization. So we are a very mixed up people. I mean, all of you would agree that we are a very mixed up people. We are a very plural society. And I think, generally speaking, we have seen plurality as an asset, not as a kind of a liability for India. That homogeneity may be possible in China because 95% of the population is Han and speaks Chinese. And they have the same script, which is, I have pointed out, a very, very important factor in that kind of sense of unity. But in India, we celebrate different languages, different cultures, different cuisines, and we have not regarded this, or let me say, we should not regard this as somehow a liability that India faces, that a strong state in India is incompatible with the toleration of these differences amongst us. So going forward, every country should leverage what its own advantages are and try to minimize what its disadvantages are. So I certainly believe that, and I believe that the makers of India's constitution, a wise set of people, also decided that it is this plurality which actually is India's strength.